Today, we delve into an isolated island film that exposes human nature. It's titled Swept Away. The story begins with a wealthy man who charters a luxurious yacht. He plans a sea voyage with his wife and friends. Upon boarding, they discover a crew member arguing with his girlfriend, which escalates into a physical confrontation. The wealthy man detests men who resort to violence against women. He tries to intervene but is held back by those around him. To vent his anger, he deliberately mocks the crew member in front of his friends that evening.
Tough day on the docks, huh?
Excuse me?
The senorita busting your balls. Why, have a shot, have a drink with us.
The public humiliation infuriates the crew member. The next day, the crew member intentionally slows down his service, taking half an hour to serve the wealthy man his drink, without offering any apology. Soon, the wealthy man complains to the captain, who then reprimands the crew member.
Why, he has no respect for anyone. Look, if you can't handle it, you're out of here, okay?
In response, the crew member quits on the spot, tossing his rag aside and leaving the galley without looking back. He is unaware that the rag has landed on a burning stove. Consequently, a large fire erupts on the yacht, forcing everyone to abandon ship and flee for their lives. The scene shifts to Jenny, the wealthy man's wife, washed ashore on a deserted island. She sits on the beach, gazing at the sea, hoping for rescue. However, only a corpse washes up, that of the captain. Just as she panics, the crew member, David, appears. He too has been swept onto the island. Both confirm they haven't seen anyone else. Jenny breaks down in tears, terrified of being stranded on the deserted island indefinitely. That night, it suddenly rains, and the two naturally huddle together for warmth, spending the night this way. The next morning, Jenny wakes to find David collecting shellfish from the sea, cracking them open, and eating them raw. Jenny is disgusted.
Is there gonna be anything else?
Maybe a fish if I get lucky.
Are you sure we can't light a fire?
Jenny assumes starting a fire is simple, believing she can just use sticks to rub together. David tells her she is mistaken. In any case, they must prepare for long-term survival on the island. First, let's detail the supplies they possess. David carries a small knife and a pair of diving goggles. On the island, they can find some washed-up debris, including a fishing net and a tarp that can be used. Next, under David's direction, they construct a rudimentary shelter using branches and leaves, secured with ropes from the fishing net. Additionally, David also builds a rainwater collection system. They dug a pit and lined it with waterproof sheeting, allowing them to collect rainwater. After finishing these tasks, David suggested they relax in the sea, advising them to remove their clothes first to avoid getting them wet.
Come on! There's nobody here!
You're here!
I don't know what difference it makes. We already slept together. Come on, now look the other way.
Don't look!
While in the water, Jenny inquired about David hitting his girlfriend. David explained that his girlfriend had hit him first, and he had simply been unable to resist striking back. As for the reason, his girlfriend wanted to marry him after she became pregnant, but he refused.
You mean she's not a virgin?
Were you a virgin when you get married?
David then turned the conversation to Jenny, but she refused to answer.
You have a double standard.
What on earth are you talking about?
You are just like your husband. You have money, so you think you're better than everyone else.
That is absolutely not true. You don't know what I think. You're just being stupid.
David could not accept being called an idiot. He emphasized that without him, Jenny would quickly perish on the island. Jenny, of course, understood this, but in her anger, she couldn't help but be defiant.
I don't need to take any more of this.
The two parted ways unhappily, but on a deserted island, there was nowhere to go to sulk. Thus, when night fell, Jenny returned to sleep in the hut, and David lay down beside her. David muttered to himself that women enjoy punishing men with silence, a tactic he had witnessed his mother employ against his father since childhood. His words carried a certain ambiguity, as if suggesting they were a quarreling married couple. At dawn, Jenny took the initiative to relent, stating she no longer wished to argue in the future. The two reconciled, promising each other to get along well from then on. However, fate had no intention of letting them remain alone for long. That very noon, while David was fishing in the reef area, he suddenly discovered the injured tycoon, Jack. He brought him back. Jenny was overjoyed, rushing to embrace Jack and helping him into the hut. Seeing Jack's weakened state, Jenny cried out of distress, staying close to him, offering continuous care and comfort. David watched from the side, a strange uneasiness stirring within him. Soon after, Jack fell into a deep sleep.
I nearly didn't. Just joking.
After an unknown period, Jack awoke, his condition significantly improved. Yet, no sooner had he recovered than he saw Jenny and David fishing together, chatting and laughing. Observing the small size of the hut, he couldn't help but wonder about the extent of their relationship. Jack had a lighter on him, which he used to start a fire.
How'd you do that?
Go ahead. I'm gonna take a swim first.
After David left, Jack questioned Jenny, asking why the hut had no partition.
We didn't have time to build a goddamn Hilton.
Yeah, well, you built the honeymoon suite, though, didn't you? You had plenty of time for that.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Take a swim.
You go. Great.
His wife's reaction clearly did not reassure Jack, so after Jenny came ashore, he decided to press further, asking his most pressing question in a feigned casual tone.
Did you fuck him?
Yeah,
Good.
he's great.
He's cute. Oh.
No man would appreciate such a jest. However, he could not afford to lash out, so he had to swallow his anger for now. A few hours later, David announced he was going to the reef area to catch lobsters. At this point, Jack proactively suggested that Jenny go with David. This was a complex psychological dynamic, involving both testing the waters and a desire for control.
Why don't you take her with you?
I don't want to go.
Is that okay?
Bring back a lobster. It'll be better than okay.
The two went diving together and caught a large lobster, but upon their return, they were astonished. Jack had already divided the shack into 2 rooms, one large and one small. He occupied the larger one. Confronted by Jenny's accusations, Jack retorted, "If we don't separate, do you expect the 3 of us to sleep together?"
It's okay, I'll take the dinghy.
Good choice.
Thus, the 3 of them began to live separately. Jack continued to question Jenny, demanding to know what exactly had transpired during the 2 days he was absent.
Nothing happened.
Jack found it impossible to believe, as he sensed Jenny cared deeply for David and consistently spoke in his defense. Seeing that Jack stubbornly refused to believe her, Jenny stopped offering further explanations and instead approached David, apologizing to him for Jack's behavior.
He thinks we're having an affair or something.
Maybe we should. No use getting the blame without the fun. Right?
Don't even joke about that.
I'm not joking.
At this moment, Jack walked over to join them, brandishing a small knife and proudly declaring that he, too, was now a dangerous individual. It turned out he had taken the knife from the captain's corpse. Bolstered by his weapon, Jack spoke without reservation, deliberately mocking the luxurious hut David had built. David immediately retorted. The atmosphere instantly grew tense.
Why are you doing
You
this?
really want to fight me?
I want you to stay the fuck away from my wife, or I'm gonna kick your ass all over this goddamn beach.
He's never touched me.
David!
No. That doesn't mean I didn't think about it.
You are a cocky little beach boy, aren't you?
That's right. And in this place, your money means nothing.
In this manner, Jack and David officially severed their ties. From this point forward, Jack would have to find his own food, and David would be forbidden from using Jack's fire. Jenny, caught in the middle, failed to mediate between the two and was compelled to follow Jack to forage for food.
Got one.
I'm not gonna eat that.
I am.
After scavenging the island and finding little to eat, Jack was forced to try fishing in the sea, while Jenny, unable to assist, chose to wait on shore. Despite lacking fire, David was thriving, with an abundant supply of sashimi. Spotting Jenny alone on the shore, he offered her some food. Jenny declined. Regardless of her personal feelings, reason dictated that she should side with her husband.
He doesn't have to know what you do anyway. I won't say anything.
For the sake of survival, Jenny had never intended to offend either party, therefore, when David offered her a way out, she accepted his food.
I'm sorry all this has happened.
Hey, it's not your fault.
Shortly after Jenny had eaten her fill, Jack returned with his spoils. He desired a cigarette to relax. Suddenly, he noticed something amiss.
What's this?
What?
Hey, what's that? Looks like fish.
Must be from the other day.
The other day.
Jenny attempted to gloss over it, but Jack quickly deduced that she had eaten David's fish. Jenny grew impatient, falsely claiming she had stolen the fish and accusing Jack of not trusting her.
You know that my wife stole fish from you today?
She wouldn't have to steal from me. If she wanted it, I'd give it to her.
Thank you.
Anytime.
One day, while Jack was fishing in the sea, he suddenly noticed smoke rising on the shore. It turned out David had stolen his fire starter. The two consequently engaged in a fierce brawl, eventually separating amidst a flurry of curses. In an act of reciprocity, the next day Jack stole David's diving mask and went fishing in the deep sea area. Upon discovering this, David became enraged, vowing to kill Jack. Jenny quickly restrained David, and in the process, they had physical contact. Driven by intense emotion, David pushed Jenny to the ground. After some struggle, Jenny soon stopped resisting, and the two eventually became intimate. Afterward, Jenny began to feel guilt and fear, urging David not to tell Jack under any circumstances.
You gotta promise me you won't say anything.
Okay. I promise. But it's not just women who are good at these things. You look into your eyes and you will know.
So why did you do it if you knew that?
Because I love you.
Not long after, Jack returned from fishing. He was very excited at this moment, for he had finally caught a large fish. However, the guilt-ridden Jenny found it impossible to share in his joy.
What?
Jenny remarked that he shouldn't have taken David's diving mask, as it had made him very angry. Jack retorted that this was excellent, and it would allow David to experience his previous feelings. Jack glanced at David, noticing not anger in his eyes, but rather a hint of exhaustion after satisfaction.
It looks pretty calm now.
Jack realized something was amiss, and he began to panic. Jack had always prided himself on being a gentleman and despised men who hit women. Yet now, he desperately wished to beat Jenny severely. Jenny was reduced to tears by his demeanor, accusing Jack of an overly intense and terrifying reaction. Jack struggled to suppress his emotions, taking deep breaths with every word he uttered.
It's over, and you broke my heart, and you deserve each other.
Ultimately, he decided to allow this well-matched pair to have each other.
I want you to get out. I guess that covers it. Doesn't Hey! That's what I caught.
Let him go, let him go. You don't need him anymore.
From then on, Jack began to live alone, secretly vowing to outlive them both and witness their demise before his own. He fashioned a diving mask from discarded plastic bottles and a tire inner tube, enabling him to fish in deeper waters. Meanwhile, Jenny ate and slept with David daily, yet remained perpetually melancholic. David knew she still thought of Jack, and he urged her to sever ties with her past affections, asserting that he was now her man. One day, Jack unexpectedly discovered a damaged small boat on the seabed, which represented their only hope of escape. He immediately began dragging the boat ashore. David and Jenny, observing the scene from a distance, rushed over at once and offered their assistance.
You got the dinghy!
Let me help you!
Back off!
That's Jack. You never shared anything with anyone your whole life.
Shared you, didn't I?
It was never yours to share.
Jack was left speechless by Jenny's self-assured demeanor. For a moment, he even wondered if he was the one at fault. Subsequently, Jack busied himself with repairing the small boat. Jenny, watching him, couldn't help but approach, attempting to use moral condemnation to persuade him to take her away.
You don't have to be cruel, Jack.
You don't think what you did was cruel?
I did what I had to do to survive. It takes a heart to forgive someone.
What do you know about heart?
Jack's cruelty left Jenny feeling both disappointed and liberated, as it allowed her to perceive him as a villain and no longer live with guilt. That evening, Jenny suggested to David that they should find an opportunity to steal the small boat the next day and leave together. David asked what would become of Jack, to which Jenny replied that he should be left to fend for himself on the island. The following day, while Jack was out fishing, they successfully pushed the small boat into the water. By the time Jack discovered it, they were already beyond reach. From their boat, the two looked back at the deserted island and cursed Jack in unison.
He looked like a madman.
He is a madman.
Unexpectedly, after the boat had drifted some distance, its hull slowly began to sink. It turned out that Jack had not repaired the small boat at all. Only then did they realize this was a trap set by Jack, designed for them to steal the boat and ultimately drown at sea. Terrified, the two frantically swam back towards the island. Meanwhile, Jack had already set fire to their love nest on the island, calmly awaiting their return. Jenny was the first to reach the shore, immediately reprimanding Jack upon her arrival. However, Jack chose to ignore her. A short while later, David, utterly exhausted, also made it to the shore. Seeing this, Jack knew the time for revenge had come. He approached David, spear in hand. Sensing danger, David turned and fled. With Jenny's assistance, David, though wounded, managed to escape. Jenny, however, was bound. That night, David ambushed Jack and finally rescued Jenny. For the moment, the two were safe from danger. At dawn, Jack followed the tracks on the ground, eventually encountering them in the forest. The two immediately took flight. Jack pursued them relentlessly from behind. After circling a large tree that obscured his view, Jack discovered they had vanished. As he searched for clues, 2 drops of liquid suddenly fell upon his head. Looking up, he saw the two standing in the tree.
Just stop it, Jack. Someone's gonna come here sooner or later. You're gonna have to live with what you did here.
What I did?
Jack sneered, then hurled his spear towards David. David, losing his balance while dodging, fell from the tree. Jack produced a small knife, preparing to finish David. Suddenly, Jenny leaped down, tackling Jack to the ground. The two engaged in a struggle. Jenny seized the knife and lunged at Jack, but her attack was blocked. Meanwhile, David seized the opportunity, hoisting a large stone, intending to crush Jack. However, David was too weak at that moment. After lifting the stone above his head, he stumbled backward, impaling himself on the spear lying on the ground. A year later, a group of tourists discovered Jenny in the shack as their boat passed the deserted island. Jenny boarded the boat. She was rescued. At this moment, Jack was fishing in the sea. Jenny did not inform anyone on the boat that Jack was also on the island. As the boat departed, Jack, having surfaced, witnessed the scene. He cried out for help. However, no one noticed him except for Jenny. Jenny, meanwhile, merely watched Jack coldly as the boat sailed further and further away. And so, the film concludes. When societal rules vanish, and class, money, and morality cease to matter, what remains on the deserted island is only the most primal human nature.